It is a mess of a morning across America. More than 100 million Americans in the path of this first storm of 2014. Just look at the drive to work this morning. 22 states going to get hit with this one.
And here's a live shot we have of Chicago. Look at the snow coming down. The huge storm moving east as we speak. Some snow already falling here in New York this morning. Roads everywhere are slick and thousands of flights already canceled or delayed this morning.
It's how Mother Nature says Happy New Year.
Yes, exactly. Welcome back.
Our extreme weather team on it all, and let's get right to Ginger Z live outside in Times Square. And Ginger, it's coming.
Oh, it is coming. Day after New Year's, and you can see right here in Times Square still some of this confetti that's been a little bit smushy and gross after the New Year. What I wanted to start with was Cleveland, because the breadth of this storm is huge. You saw pictures from Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland this morning, a snowy, icky mess if you're going back to work or school. And here's what's going to happen with this storm, because we are about 12 hours from the worst of it here in New York City, and I want to give you timing for everyone else. Through Pennsylvania it comes, and then it starts wrapping in the low that is going to go offshore, getting some moisture, so that's 6 p.m. But overnight is the worst of it from New York through Long Island, which has a blizzard warning, parts of Connecticut up through Boston, and eventually Maine. The big next question, how much more snow? As Chicago already had in some places more than a foot, they're going to see some lake effect, 3 to 6 inches with a ring around the lake. And look at that, Philadelphia just under 4. New York could see close to a half foot. Locally, a lot of places, a foot or more, and certainly more in Boston. It's going to come along with winds, and behind it, some of the coldest air in decades. Chicago overnight lows by the end of the weekend, 13 below, and it gets even worse from there. That is exactly where we find our Gio Benitez this morning. He's in Rosemont, Illinois. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Ginger. If this is what's heading your way, get ready. It is freezing. This may look like a wonderland, but don't worry about it. This is actually a nightmare for so many people here trying to drive through the area. You said it, more than a foot of snow in some parts of the Chicagoland area. And take a look at what's happening all across this nation. A monster winter storm driving hard across the nation.
It's pretty bad out there.
With more than 20 states from Kansas to New England in the crosshairs. A 3-alarm fire in sub-zero Minneapolis. Rescue crews there battling the blaze and the bitter cold. Water from their hoses quickly freezing and coating everything it touches in solid ice.
It's like working on a skating rink.
Firefighters even hacking ice off their ladders. This train in eastern Iowa derailed after frosty temps warped the rails. Overnight, the Chicago area hit with its biggest snow of the season, up to a foot of white.
It just keeps piling up and it just has not stopped.
This car sliding right into a traffic light and a stop sign before slamming into the side of a store. And residents there using whatever they can find to clear the way. And the Northeast now bracing for the blow. Residents from Philly to Boston stocking up ahead of plummeting single-digit temps and blizzard-like conditions likely to hit some areas with more than 2 feet of snow. In Burlington, Vermont, salt is going fast. Most stores there already sold out. So here in Chicago, this weather is supposed to just get even worse and worse throughout the day. But remember, this is the same exact system that's supposed to move all over the East Coast, as Ginger said, David.
All right, we're warned. Gio Benitez in the middle of it all for us. Gio, we appreciate it. This is going to be a real mess, by the way, in the roads and in the air already this morning. Thousands of flights canceled, delayed. Let's get right to ABC's Mohammed Leela at New York's LaGuardia Airport for us this morning. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning to you, David. I'm live in the departures hall of LaGuardia Airport. All morning, we've been seeing a steady stream of passengers scrambling here, hoping their flights aren't delayed. You can see some of those passengers just over my shoulder here. Now, even though, as Ginger mentioned, New York so far hasn't been hit by this big blast of winter, that is not the case in a lot of other cities in America. Let's take a look at some of the numbers. So far, more than 1,700 flights have been delayed. More than 1,100 flights across the country have been canceled outright. ExpressJet, Commute Air, and United are all leading the pack in terms of airlines that have so far been affected. In terms of airports, well, let's take a look. No surprises here. Newark's Liberty International, Chicago's O'Hare, and Cleveland International, the top 3 airports right now that are suffering from delays and outright cancellations. Now, as for New York's LaGuardia, one of the reasons you see behind me it's moving so well is because people have told me they've come here several hours ahead of time knowing that the storm was going to hit today. And clearly, David, on a day like today, that is some of the best travel advice there is.
All right, Mohammed Leela at the airport for us this morning. Mohammed, thanks.
This year starts with a massive winter storm blanketing almost half of this country. In some places in the continental United States, they are colder than the North Pole. And in other parts of the country, it's whiteout. Drivers urged off the roads. 100 million Americans hunkering down tonight. And our extreme weather team is out in force and right there in the snowdrift. We begin with ABC's Gio Benitez in Chicago. It is piling up. Gio.
It sure is, Diane. Good evening to you from a snowy Chicagoland. It's just getting colder and colder. 12 degrees right here, right now. It feels like 2 below zero. And this stuff isn't just fluffy, it is downright relentless.
From blaring sirens in Evanston, Illinois, alerting residents to a snow emergency, to a Chicago whiteout, up to 18 inches of fresh snow in places. The Midwest is a blowing, snowing deep freeze. Officials, too, sounding a warning.
We ask that residents check on the well-being of residents, friends, and neighbors.
The city's full fleet of 287 snowplows and salt spreaders dominate the streets. Snowplows in nearby Rosemont out in force, too, looking like a choreographed ballet. Drivers operating on little sleep, a grueling job, as we found out.
Let's plow.
When it gets heavy, you just got to keep going and going and going and going.
And that's what we do. If you let it build up, we'll never move it.
Lyle Richmond knows that, clearing the snow from his house over and over again.
4 times within the past 24 hours?
Probably a little less than 24 hours, yes.
Wow.
4 times, yes.
The snowy mess also causing chaos in the air. More than 1,900 cancellations across the U.S. as holiday travelers try to get home. Plane de-icers working overtime. More than 500 accidents reported in Michigan. Icy roads all the way to Tennessee and even the mountains of North Carolina. This car flipped on its side on roads that look like glass. In International Falls, Minnesota, that haunting sign, 40 below zero. An opportunity to show the power of the cold temps. This egg went from cracked to frozen solid in a cast iron pan in just 5 minutes. And in a Wichita parking lot, perhaps America's most dedicated worker, gathering shopping carts in blustery sub-zero wind.
And you know that chemical salt used to melt snow and ice? Well, it turns out that if the temperature is below 20 degrees, it's pretty useless. But one guy who may need it tonight is ABC's Ron Claiborne. He's live outside Boston tonight. Ron, good evening to you.
Hey, Gio, I'm in Cohasset, Massachusetts, south of Boston. You know, as bad as it was where you are there in the Midwest, it could get even worse here as that storm system that you experienced joins with a system coming up from the south to form a very potent nor'easter here in the Northeast. It started with a light powdering coating the Northeast, and then it came roaring in. A powerful nor'easter that pounded the Northeast, all the way up to Maine and far inland. In the Boston area, traffic ground almost to a halt on many major highways, and everywhere roads were littered with accidents and spinouts. A pickup truck flipped onto its side in Maine. A semi beached on a highway median, in this photo tweeted by the Massachusetts State Police. And a Massachusetts State Police car victim of a fender bender. In Boston, a snow emergency was in effect. Schools closed, street parking banned, government workers sent home early. In New York City, the heavy snow wasn't due to strike till much later.
Don't panic. Everything will be fine. You'll make it.
The storm was a kind of tale of 2 cities and 2 mayors. Boston's Tom Menino, 4 days from leaving office after 20 years.
I guess Mother Nature wanted to give me one more gift. A snowstorm.
And New York City's Bill de Blasio in office for just his 2nd day.
It would have been nice to have a nice calm first day, but we have snow on our mind and we are focused like a laser.
Also on the mind of New York officials avoiding a repeat of last year's February blizzard, which saw motorists stranded on highways. Late today, New York's governor declaring a statewide emergency and banning all traffic on 3 major interstates near New York City, effective at midnight. And this is really the epicenter of this nor'easter, this area from south of Boston, including all of Cape Cod. This area is expected to get At least 15 inches of snow before this storm leaves sometimes Friday late morning. And that's just the first, Diane, of a 1-2 punch. That second punch is going to be temperatures plunging down, Diane, into the single minus digits. Very cold here in New England. Coming up.
We can tell how frigid it is. Thank you so much, Ron Claiborne, and thank you, Gio, as well.